Remember Federal Disposal Field HZ-21 and how the concrete pillars were supposed to act as a warning to future generations? No? Well, I made a video about it. Watch this video and then go watch that one. But that's not the point of this video. Northeast of the menacing pillars is another set of strange and mysterious stones. Rocks. The Mysterious Guidestones are an unmarked location in the Savage Divide region of Appalachia, and when I say mysterious, I mean it. There is hardly any information on this odd rock formation. If we take a look at the etchings on the stones, they appear to be, at least to me that is, completely random. They have, as some would say, no rhyme or reason to exist. They are called the Mysterious Guidestones in-game, so are they a map? What exactly are they supposed to be guiding us to? The strange nature of this location leaves me with more and more questions that might never be able to be answered. But what doesn't leave me with more questions is today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends. As a lore fiend, I love getting my grubby little mitts on a new game and just delving into the world that it presents. Doubly so when the world is fully fleshed out and has a ton of races, factions, and conflicts to explore. With Raid Shadow Legends, I get exactly that. Raid has got a ton of champions, over 600 now, and each are from their own unique factions with their own history set in the world of Teleria. Take the High Elves for example. They are an extremely arrogant people. They take credit for human civilization despite both coming into existence at the same time. They say they helped the world recover after the Lizardman Empire fell, but they were really just spectators, and they claim to be an extremely inclusive people, as long as you follow their laws and cultures. Which I suppose makes a bit of sense because at the end of the day, they're really just trying to avoid another civil war, like the one they had with the Dark Elves. But when you take into account that the Sacred Order are zealots, the Dark Elves are evil big bads, and the Night Revenant are a death-focused pyramid scheme, the High Elves don't seem that bad. Elaine is my favorite, and you can get her from the start. This is a huge month for Raid. The brand new faction, the Sylvan Watchers, just got released with a bunch of new champions, featuring Forest Elves, Ents, Druids, and Fays, and they look mighty cool. Even more, Raid has got a full lineup of events with the new Season of the Forge Pass, where you can get your hands on some of the most powerful gear the game has ever seen. Right now is the best time to get started in Raid. Click my link in the description or scan my QR code on the screen to get unique bonuses worth $30. That includes a free epic champion, Rector Drath, 200k silver, 1 energy refill, 1 XP boost, and 1 ancient shard so you can summon an epic champion right away. All of this can be found here. Thanks again to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. But we do know a little bit about the stones. Professor Michael Blake of Vault-Tec University was attempting to translate the strange markings that appear on each of the stones. In a terminal entry titled Guidestone Translation, he writes, "Jacqueline has instructed me that she would feel safer if I move the translation key offline. The woman is paranoid, but I don't disagree that it's for good reason. It is because of this that she insists on keeping the original notes with her. She says it's for the best just in case someone gets to one of us, so none of us have all the pieces. Even Agent Wilson's taking precautions. We could be onto something big here." Then again, I still maintain the runes are simply ancient petroglyphs left by the indigenous peoples of the region. Jacqueline believes they may be extraterrestrial in nature, but I'll stick with Occam on this one. The hypothesis with the fewest assumptions is often the correct one. Now, while Blake is erring on the side of Occam's razor and is a bit more reasonable with his hypothesis, that being that they are simple petroglyphs left behind by indigenous people of the region, his peer Jacqueline is in firm belief that they are from some form of extraterrestrial origin. Even Bureau of Alcohol, Drugs, Tobacco, Firearms, and Lasers agent Curtis Wilson was interested in the research that the pair was performing. The belief was that it could be something big. As for what that might be, it could be anyone's guess really. But I think that Agent Curtis Wilson was onto something, and maybe knew more than both Professor Blake and Jacqueline. Now, I believe that this is the first time I've ever mentioned Agent Wilson on my channel. I'll do a quick brief about him as he is mentioned by Michael Blake in his terminal logs. Agent Curtis Wilson was originally on an assignment in Appalachia tasked with investigating the Free States movement. Working alongside local sheriff Scott Darcy, the pair discovered a vast conspiracy originating from the government. Before he could continue his investigation and look more into the government conspiracy, the Great War happened, and luckily, both Wilson and Darcy survived. Now, with much of society effectively crippled, the ability to access secret government files seemed much easier. During this time, Curtis opened several investigation reports about various oddities of the Appalachian region. His terminal records 6 entries. One is about a mysterious signal, another about domestic bugs, one on something ominously titled The Quarantine, another on the Atlas Observatory, one on the Mothman cult, and the final one on the Mysterious Guidestones. And while this video focuses on the Mysterious Guidestones, each entry could probably make for their own video. That is, if they were accessible. You see, Wilson and Darcy's pre-war snooping into this big government conspiracy would soon catch up with them. Before the pair could continue their investigation, Darcy turned up dead under mysterious circumstances. And Darcy's death would push Wilson into hiding, leaving only a personal note behind. "My name is Curtis Wilson. The BAD-TFL originally sent me out here to investigate the Free States movement. I worked closely with a local sheriff, Scott Darcy. However, during the course of the investigation, we turned up vast conspiracies originating from our own government institutions. It became clear that if I wanted to get to the bottom of this, I would need to quit my job and do my own investigations. Then, the war happened, and we survived. Suddenly, doors that were shut tight were now wide open and unguarded. But before we could get our answers and finish our investigations, Sheriff Darcy turned up dead under suspicious circumstances. I'm taking it as a sign that I should leave and continue my investigation elsewhere when the time is right. The contents of my findings will remain inaccessible until then. The world needs to know." Wilson would lock every case file on his terminal, returning an access denied when the Vault Dweller tries to access them. Now, could Wilson return in a future content update leading to more answers regarding the Mysterious Guidestones? Perhaps, but for now, it would seem that we can only speculate. They are called the Mysterious Guidestones for a reason after all. Now, while that is all the current information we have about the Guidestones from the game, again, similar to the Federal Disposal Field, these specific Mysterious Guidestones are actually inspired from our real world, though they're not found in West Virginia. The Georgia Guidestones are a granite monument that could be found in Elbert County, Georgia. If we compare pictures, there is no doubt that Fallout's Mysterious Guidestones were based on the Georgia Guidestones. So I figure if Fallout doesn't have much in-game lore about the Mysterious Guidestones, allow me to tell you about the real-world lore of the Georgia Guidestones. I think you'll be able to quickly piece together and find out how it might relate to Appalachia's Mysterious Guidestones. Our story starts in June of 1979. A man going by the name Robert C. Christian approached the Elberton Granite Finishing Company with a proposal. He asked to commission a large granite structure on behalf of a small group of loyal Americans. He would refuse to elaborate on who these loyal Americans were. Christian explained that this monument was to function as a compass, calendar, and clock, and should be capable to withstand catastrophic events. He wanted the stones to rival Stonehenge. After all, according to Christian, it was the prehistoric British monument that inspired his design. Christian liked Stonehenge. It was an impressive monument, but to him it was missing something. It lacked a message. His Guidestones would be different. After hearing Robert C. Christian's proposal, John Fendley of Elberton Granite thought the man was, in his words, a nut. Fendley attempted to dissuade Christian by giving a quote that was several magnitudes higher than any project the company had previously been commissioned for. Fendley's reasoning was that such a unique design would require additional tools and more consultants. A reasonable excuse, I might add. Fendley thought the steep price was enough to dismiss the strange man, but to his surprise, Christian accepted the quote. Christian explained that he represented a group that had been planning to construct the Guidestones for over 20 years now, and so a steep price didn't matter much. He and his anonymous group just wanted it done. He explained that they decided to build them in Elbert County due to the region's abundance of granite, rural landscape, mild climate, and family ties to the region. And although the final cost of the project was never revealed, it was estimated to cost over $100,000, which would be slightly over $400,000 in 2022. These sharp rocks were not cheap. Now, let me tell you why. The Georgia Guidestones are 19 feet 3 inches tall, made up of 6 granite slabs with a combined total weight of 237,746 pounds. They are massive, absolute units of rock and stone. Now, that's likely the main culprit that dictated the price. Pay a lot of money, get a lot of rock. Simple math. But as I alluded to before, this monument was built to convey a message. And so, on each face of the 4 large upright stones was an inscription, translated into 8 different languages. 1 language per wide face, you get the idea. The languages included English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Arabic, traditional Chinese, Russian, and Hebrew. The former 7 thought to be the most common languages throughout the world, and Hebrew for its ties to Judaism and Christianity. In case you didn't put it together already, the religion of Christianity played a semi-big role in the creation of the Guidestones. Hebrew was one of the translated messages, and the pseudonym Robert C. Christian was an obvious reference to the religion. Oh yeah, in case you didn't realize, Robert C. Christian, it's not his actual name. We don't know who this man is. Anyway, the message was a list of 10 guidelines or principles that were to be followed after a nuclear apocalypse. They were meant to guide humanity to conserve nature after a major catastrophe. They read: 1. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. 2. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. 3. Unite humanity with a living new language. 4. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. 5. Protect people and nations with fair and just courts. 6. Let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. 7. Avoid petty laws and useless officials. 8. Balance personal rights with social duties. 9. Prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. 10. Be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature, leave room for nature. And located a few feet west of the monument, an additional granite ledger can be found set into the ground. It would serve as an explanatory tablet for the monument, containing relevant information such as the structure's physical features, astronomical features, date of installation, and sponsors of the project, including instructions for a time capsule, but we'll get to that later. By March 1980, construction of the monument had finished, and it was ready to be unveiled to the public. Georgia Congressman Doug Bernard would unveil the stones to an audience of a couple hundred on March 22nd. In an address to the people, the Master of Ceremonies remarked that, in order to avoid debate, we the sponsors of the Georgia Guidestones have a simple message for human beings, now and for the future. We believe our precepts are sound, and they must stand on their own merits. The statement was likely in response to claims that called the construction of the monument the devil's work. People didn't like the idea of a strange, mysterious man erecting several 20 feet tall, ominous granite pillars in their county. And as the guidelines etched into the stone sound very eugenics-esque, I don't blame them. Guide reproduction wisely? Who knew 3 words was so messed up? Anywho, later, Christian transferred the ownership of the land and the Guidestones to Elbert County itself. In 1986, a man claiming to be Robert Christian published a book called Common Sense Renewed. In it, he described the ideology of the Guidestones, saying that, "I am the originator of the Georgia Guidestones and the sole author of its inscriptions. I have had the assistance of a number of other American citizens in bringing the monument into being. We have no mysterious purpose or ulterior motives. We seek common sense pathways to a peaceful world, without bias for particular creeds or philosophies." Now, if I may be a bit blunt for a moment, 1. This statement does no good at debunking the mysterious nature of the stones. Saying you have no ulterior motives or purposes is exactly what someone with an ulterior motive or purpose would say. You don't just fork over nearly $500,000 in today's money because you had no mysterious purpose or ulterior motive. If you really wanted to just put up some rock monument, just say that your motive was that you wanted to put up some rock monument. Saying you have no other purpose is sorta dodging the question. 2. The messages do have bias for particular creeds and philosophies. While the message does promote diversity, great job, clap for you, it also promotes population and reproduction control, bad job, no clap, and requests that the new humanity unite themselves under a singular language. Family and language are 2 major factors in various global cultures. Demanding that the world adhere to your set vision of how many people should be in a family and what language they should speak is a biased take. You're promoting through your guidelines the erasure of cultural defining features. Bad, not good. Anyway, we continue. As I mentioned earlier, some people claim the structure to be the devil's work. A local minister even warned people that occult groups would visit the site and a sacrifice was imminent. And this criticism and fearfulness, I guess, of the stones would continue sporadically throughout the years until eventually coming to a head. In 2008, the stones were defaced with polyurethane paint and graffiti. These vandals wrote things like, "Death to the New World Order," "Jesus will beat you Satanist," "You will not succeed," and "No one world government." This was considered the first major act of vandalism against the Guidestones. But we're not done yet. In 2014, the FBI was contacted after an employee of the Elbert County Maintenance Department found some graffiti that read, "I am Isis, goddess of love." Seems weird that this was the trigger to alert the FBI, but I guess at the time ISIS, the terrorist group, was a trigger word to evoke this sort of response, even if the vandal was referring to the Egyptian goddess. After this incident, security cameras were installed on the site. Really weird thing of note, but Candace Taylor, a candidate in the 2022 Georgia Republican gubernatorial primary, called the Guidestones satanic, and her campaign platform called for the monument to be removed. Like, why? Is that really at the top of the list for problems that Georgians are facing? As someone not from Georgia, I would like my politicians to address the housing market, climate change, education, things that affect the general population. Anyway, I digress. The tale of the Georgia Guidestones would reach its climax on July 6th, 2022, when this happened. At roughly 4 a.m. on the morning of July 6, 2022, several nearby residents reportedly heard and felt an explosion. This explosion destroyed the Swahili Hindi slab and caused significant damage to the capstone. CCTV footage recorded a vehicle leaving the scene. This would lead to a police investigation. As a safety precaution, potentially for fear that the culprit might return to finish the job, the remaining Guidestones were to be dismantled. America's Stonehenge was no more. Oh, and remember how I said that the Guidestone inscription mentioned a time capsule buried underneath them? Well, when the Alberton County Public Workers dug up and removed the rest of the stones, they also tried to find the time capsule, but to their dismay, they discovered no evidence of a time capsule, indicating that it might have never been buried. Really random and strange, I know. Anywho, the police investigation. The Elbert County Sheriff's Office, with help from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, opened a case to investigate the bombing. They had the CCTV footage of the bombing, but nothing else to really go off of. No motives were publicly shared, and no suspects were publicly identified. On July 14th and on July 25th, the investigators provided the public with an update. But in both press conferences, their updates were just them saying that they had no update to share. As the Guidestones belonged to the county, their destruction would carry a minimum sentence of 20 years of prison time. They don't mess around when people destroy their stuff. In late July 2022, Elberton's mayor said that the town planned to rebuild the monument exactly as it was. But both the Elberton City Council and Elberton Granite Association expressed doubt that the Georgia Guidestones would actually be rebuilt. But you never know, maybe 81 years from now in 2103, when the world is destroyed in a global nuclear event, a lone vault dweller will set out on an adventure and find a strange granite formation in the Rocky Hills of Appalachia. They might see some strange markings on the stones and think, I wonder what this means. We'll then Google weird Guidestones in Fallout 76 and find my YouTube video explaining them. You never know. And that is the tale of the Georgia Guidestones. Kinda crazy how recent that bombing was. And for what, too? Were these rocks that much of an eyesore that you'll risk 20 years in prison just to have them removed? Even if you don't agree with the message that's associated with them, they're just stones. They can't hurt you. It's just a shame that such an interesting, mysterious, and ominous landmark is now gone without a trace of who did it and why. A real darn shame. Anyway, that's all from me today, folks. Apologies if this wasn't as much Fallout content as you expect. As I mentioned before, the Mysterious Guidestones are just that, mysterious. But I really like making these Fallout lore IRL kind of videos. This is like the third or fourth one I've done. It's fun to explore the world of Fallout and then learn about some of the game's real-life inspirations. Whether it be Bonnie and Clyde, the 10,000 Years Initiative, Lizzie Borden, the Winchester House, or even these 6 strange slabs of granite. You learn something new every day. Thanks for all the support lately. I appreciate every one of you that likes, comments, and subscribes, or even just views my content. You rock. Pun fully intended. Have a good rest of your day. Cheers.
Have you seen the Mysterious Guidestones? Quite majestic, are they not? Some might say otherworldly.